Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Podcast Daily. Happy Thursday from Bill Landis and me, Austin Ward. It's a special edition because we have some great news about Big Ten Media Days to share with you all. And then we also...
Is it that it's canceled? We don't have to go.
Hey, that would be a dream come true. Canceled and replaced with a full Team Media Day on campus, which
Perfect.
is, of course, my idea for what the Big Ten needs to do for the future. We can get into that if we want. Bill and I are going to talk about the three Buckeyes heading to Indianapolis with Ryan Day. And we also have a special treat. Instead of a Freaky Friday interview, Maxwell Moldovan would be pretty busy. He's playing in the Barbasol Championship this weekend. He Monday qualified the Ohio State golfer who made the cut at the U.S. Open in a PGA Tour event this week. Talked to him on Wednesday as he got ready to play today. He tees off at 8:57. So we'll have that chat, a little special addition to the show. But before we get into that, it's football time. And Bill, do you agree with these three picks for the Buckeyes?
Just going from one scratch golfer to another. Yeah, like they make sense. I think if you were to just go off of like profile alone, maybe you like to see Tommy Eichenberg in that mix, but as someone who is whose livelihood depends on the words that other people say, I think it makes sense that Tommy is not going, and it's certainly well within his right to not do that. I would not want to subject him to that if it were my decision either. So the trio of like Marvin Harrison Jr., Kate Stover, JT Tuimoloau, I think that makes sense. You get a balance of both sides of the ball. You get some captains in there. You get a guy who might be the best player in college football this year. So it's a good mix. I think there were a couple others maybe who could have made the cut. Like Donovan Jackson maybe could have been one. I don't know. Maybe Lathan Ransom maybe could have been a good one too. But this trio makes sense. I think if you come to the table with the understanding of who Tommy is and what he would prefer to do, these are probably the three you'd settle on.
I mean, should we spill a little inside baseball tea on that?
Yeah, why not? Go ahead.
He was given the option. Ohio State doesn't force anyone to go. Now, they may, in Marvin's case, say, the Big Ten kind of wants the superstars there. It'd be great if you could really do this. Please, please go. But when it was presented to Tommy Eichenberg and he was like, what do I have to do? And he got the list of responsibilities for that day in Indianapolis. He was like, nah. And Ohio State, to their credit, was like, okay, no problem.
I don't know if so. Like we go and the players are at a podium for like it's 40 minutes now. It used to be like 90 minutes, and now it's like about half that. And the same thing for the coaches, but that's not all they do. They used to be there for like the entirety of like the 2 days, right? I don't think they make them do that anymore because they don't do the luncheon thing anymore, I don't believe. But it's still a long day of talking. Like it's not just us they're talking to. They'll go to whatever radio shows are there and talk to those guys. They'll do interviews with TV stations, all like Fox and NBC and Big Ten Network all have like little stations set up and do sit down interviews with everybody. They'll make them do stupid stuff on social media. Like you're talking for like 7 hours. And that's a lot. Like it can be quite exhausting. And especially so when you're a guy who, like, in the regular course of a day might say 12 words. So I totally understand where Tommy is coming from. And if I were him, I think I would have made the same decision.
Yeah, that's another reason why I think that this format, it has outlived its usefulness. Like, it's primarily a made for BTN event. I get that part. I think that there are other solutions that they could come up with that would help the Big Ten media, maybe not the national media, which is, it probably goes in order of broadcast partners, get in the national media to make it easy for them to get the whole league. And then us, day-to-day team-focused reporters and podcasters, they don't really care because there is no world where us getting three Buckeyes and Ryan Day is all that helpful for the audience, like compared to the alternative, which is, hey, have every school bring their entire roster out for 1 hour and then feast at it. That's a lot more information that we could gain rather than, hearing, the Indianapolis media ask about Marvin's dad and playing for the Colts and being in the Ring of Honor.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I know. You didn't think about that, did you?
I sure didn't.
I'm sorry to break it to you, but it's going to be tough to sneak in questions once the Indiana television crews show up. Cade getting asked a million times about the toughness, and I am kind of interested to see how well he can maintain his composure in the face of that. And then JT Tuimoloau, who wants to take no personal credit for anything that he does. Those three guys are going to get big crowds. They always do. It's Ohio State, but I don't know how much those three can actually shed light on a lot of the other stuff that's going on in the offseason for Ohio State, especially if we have to hear about Marvin Harrison Sr. for a nonstop hour.
Yeah, I had not considered that. That's going to be really unfortunate. Hopefully I'm sure we'll be able to get Marvin away from that media scrum for a few minutes to talk about things people actually care about. Cade will be interesting because you're just sitting there for, like we said, 40 minutes or so. But a lot of the media are kind of like bouncing around. You can come with a list of questions. Like Cade Stover is going to get asked the same question probably like 7 times. And I don't know if he has the patience for that. So it will be there are other guys who are understanding of that dynamic. I would be probably pretty annoyed by that too, especially when they're very obvious questions. So I get it, but he's not someone I think who's really interested or capable of hiding that when he gets annoyed. So that could be pretty entertaining. I might just stand by Cade's table the entire time and just see how he reacts to those things. Like the 4th time he gets asked about losing to Michigan, could be quite a scene.
Yeah, I think you're making a great pick there. We might have to fight over that between the three of us. I know that Berm won't want to leave it. He's going to want to watch Cade, his muse, the entire time to see how he reacts. And the only reason that I bring that up, A, it's his personality, but B, he had already shown some of that irritation before the Peach Bowl in the media days that preceded that, both in Atlanta and on campus, when there was the long layoff where we didn't talk to anybody, and Cade is a captain and a spokesman for the team. And they're like, well, how do you guys bounce back from this and rally? And he feels the sting. He's an Ohio kid. He's a captain. He wasn't happy about it. But a lot of this, looking back at what happened on November 26th of last year, stands in the way of forward progress. And I think that Cade, did the best job of describing that, where his irritation showed that there wasn't any point for Ohio State to just keep solely talking about the game and the rivalry in Michigan, because they could still win a national championship. And some of that is, and maybe even more so, is going to be true in 2 weeks in Indianapolis, because it's a new season. And that's not the only game that matters on the schedule, even if it's the most important regular season one they play.
I do think there will be it's a similar topic, I suppose, but there will be some interesting things to get into, and we'll probably drill down more on some of the major questions we have as we get closer to it. But I do think there was some things learned last year about the approach to the Michigan game, the fallout from it, the reset to get ready for Georgia, and then how they put that on the field against Georgia. I think all three of these guys will be able to talk about that in a fairly intelligent and insightful way that we get a lot out of. But it's almost like it's a thing that's a little difficult, I think, about media day sometimes. And it's easier for us, I guess, because we have 3 people. But if you're there by yourself and you're kind of trying to bounce around, you miss a lot. And I think you're more likely to get the best stuff within the first 10 to 15 minutes of a guy sitting down at his table. And I hope that kind of stuff does come up early on in their processes, because it's interesting to me. Maybe it's not interesting to other people, but I like the willingness to be introspective. And I maybe the players won't have that. I wonder if Ryan Day will when he sits down as well. But if they are, I do think there'll be some interesting stuff to glean from that as they take what they learned last year, reset, and put it on the field here in 2023.
Some of it might depend on the way that it's structured in terms of Ohio State's schedule, because if the last thing that they do, which sometimes it works out this way, is come, do their podium session and then you're done. Well, that means, as you alluded to earlier, that you've gone and talked to every network and every, national reporter. I used to be fortunate enough to do that when I was at ESPN, and you had your own room. ESPN.com had that. And it was like, you did get a lot of great stuff there. A, it was one-on-one, and B, it was kind of early before they did anything else. That's when the really good stuff, popped out. There's a fatigue factor. And so it's not even just the first 10 minutes, if they get to the podium that you're talking about, where some good stuff may be said. It will help that there's familiar faces. So maybe that can provide a benefit. for the local media, but like they may already be worn out by the time they get to the podium, and then they get that stuff for 45 minutes, and they'll say things like, as I said earlier, I told somebody else. Like you hear that a lot, and I hope that's not the way it works out for Ohio State, though I fear it might be.
So I'm looking at the schedule now. Ryan at the main podium, the stuff you see on Big Ten Network, Ryan Day is last. He will follow Kirk Ferentz, which
what a warm-up act.
Should be interesting. It's fun. I'm looking at this. Pat Fitzgerald's still on here, so I guess this could change. I don't know.
Subject to change.
But as it stands, as I'm looking at this right now on the Big Ten Media Day website, Ryan Day is last at the podium. Ohio State student athletes are first for the breakout sessions, which is nice. I hope that doesn't change. And then Ryan Day is not last, but he's close to the end of the breakout schedule. He goes at 3:30 in the afternoon till 4:15, and the whole thing wraps up at 5. So he'll be later in the day. He'll be worn out, but hopefully the players will be in a good mood when we get to talk to them.
All right. Well, there you have it. Did you think there was any chance that Kyle McCord could be invited?
You know what? Maybe. Like, I think maybe I've mentioned this before. Like, there have been some stuff like ESPN's gone through and done some stories in the offseason, and like they've allowed ESPN to talk to Kyle, and I think Kyle has maybe talked to some other national outlets. So they're kind of putting him out there a little bit, and we all assume that he'll be the starter. So I don't think I would have been surprised. I didn't think it was an impossibility, but fairly unlikely, but not impossible.
Yeah, he's really polished in those situations as well for somebody who's done very little media. But I guess they figured there'll be enough time for that later in the season.
Yeah, he would have been good. But also, if he and Marvin were both there, then it'd just be questions about the Philadelphia Catholic League from me.
So what's the downside to that?
Nothing at all.
We've got to find some way to get it through the heads of the Big Ten communications department that Big Ten Media Days needs to be canceled. And I think you standing up there for 45 minutes talking about the Birds and the Phils and the Catholic League would have been a great way to make that point.
Just make all the other reporters so angry that they all rise as one to get them to cancel Big Ten Media Days. I'll do that. I'll take that on.
Now I've got the idea. Perfect. All right. We, as Bill said, we'll get into more of that coverage as we get closer. It's 2 weeks away. As you can tell, we're pretty excited for that and to have some more football and some actual news to break down for Ohio State. Maybe we'll get that in the coming days with some players. Stay tuned for that. We'll have more coverage coming on the podcast daily and maybe in some other interviews as we get ready and get closer to training camp starting. But until then, that's going to end the football conversation with Bill and myself. We're going to switch gears and head over to the golf course with Maxwell Moldovan. All right, folks, let's jump over to the golf course. Normally, we would save some of our special guests for a Freaky Friday, but this guy over here is going to be pretty busy. Max Moldovan, he is qualified into the Barbasol Championship. He plays for Ohio State Golf. He's also a U.S. Open cut maker, and he's having a pretty busy summer, and he's giving us a couple minutes before he prepares. Max, thanks for taking the time, first of all.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right. So for anybody who is listening to the podcast today who doesn't know what Monday qualifying is, how did you get into the field this week?
Yeah, so thankfully the made cut at the U.S. Open got me through every pre-qualifier for the rest of the PGA Tour season and actually all the fall as well. So I was able to start just signing up for the Monday qualifier, and I went down to Kentucky on Sunday and got an afternoon practice round in, and just had a really good day on Monday. And thankfully it was enough to get me in the field.
Now, that's the hard way in on those Mondays. How many players were in the field? What did you shoot on Monday?
I think there were 71 players on the field for 4 spots in the tournament, and I shot 7 under par.
That'll work. This process and wanting to add that to your summer schedule. I mean, you could be just working on the range or hanging out in Columbus. Why do you want to take on some of these bigger challenges right now?
I think the biggest thing for me is, especially right now, I feel like my game's in a pretty good place. So I want to give myself as many opportunities as I can to be successful. I actually had the plan if I didn't Monday qualify, I was going to fly straight to Dallas for the Trans-Miss Amateur and play that starting on Tuesday without a practice round. So I think just, especially in the summer, when I can make my own schedule, I think the biggest thing for me is just giving myself as many opportunities as I can to be successful, and hoping that at the right time I'll get that win and or have that good week. So
You mentioned that you get a little bit of a head start for some of these Monday Qs based on what you did at Los Angeles Country Club. That week seems like it was kind of a life changer, or it could be. I won't put words in your mouth. You've had a little bit of time since then. What did that accomplishment mean for you, and how has it changed everything since then?
it meant a lot. I think mostly for my confidence. I think being able to go out there and compete last year at the U.S. Open, I struggled a little bit, missed the cut by a few. But to go out there this year, knowing that I was a better player and proving that, and making the cut and beating a lot of really good players. I know, I mean, it's week to week in the game of golf, but that week being able to beat some big names that I look up to a lot, it was a cool moment for me to realize that my game is getting close to the point where I can compete at the highest level. And yeah, it's definitely done a lot. I think getting exempt through the pre-qualifiers is a big deal, especially into the fall. Our college season schedule won't be too heavy, so I'll be able to play a couple of Monday qualifiers, and just getting my name in front of some tournament directors, especially for next summer when I plan to turn professional. Hopefully getting into some tournaments through a sponsor exemption. Guys knowing who I am, I think that's going to help me a lot. So yeah, the U.S. Open was, like you said, it definitely was a life-changing week, and it was really cool to have all my close circle there with me too.
Yeah, that's great. And then that helps you, as well as playing that round on Monday, gets you in at that Barbasol Championship down there in Kentucky at Keene Trace. Again, Max is teeing off at 8:57, so follow along that. There's a tracker on Twitter as well. I think maybe you'll get some hole-by-hole updates from your team out there. How do you set goals for this week? You know, you still have amateur status, so it's not like you're playing for a massive check in this event. You know, how does that change your thinking, if at all?
I don't think that has a ton to do with it. I think for me, playing golf, I want to compete. I want to win. I want to bring glory to God. I want to enjoy all the experience with my friends and family. And then the money is just an additional thing that I'm hopefully looking forward to in the future. But yeah, I think this week, after knowing how I played at the U.S. Open, I think there's no reason that I shouldn't be able to compete this week if I'm playing the kind of golf that I'm capable of. So I think not having a ton of expectation or particular goals this week, but trying to take each round by itself and play the golf that I can and hopefully find my name near the leaderboard.
Are there any moments when, I don't know, probably more at the U.S. Open than being around the range at this week in alternate field? It's still very cool. It's a PGA Tour event. I'm not trying to diminish that in any way, but there has to have been some moments where you're looking around and like, is this real? Am I really out here at this point? I mean, maybe you don't feel that way, but I know I would.
Yeah, it's a different feeling this week. I was a little bit starstruck, and at both of the U.S. Opens I played, my eyes were open pretty big. I was impressed with all the grandstands and all the player hospitality stuff and all the big name guys that I was out there sharing the course with. But this week's a little bit different. It's not quite as top heavy of a field as a major would be. And it's just, it's not a major championship, but it is still a PGA Tour event. And I think that being out here, the more experiences I get, the more comfortable I'm going to be. So I'm just going to try and soak this one in and get as comfortable as I can out here, hoping that one day this is what I can do week to week.
How does your experience with and at Ohio State help prepare you? You think golf is such an individual sport. I know that, but there's a lot of former Buckeyes on tour. We know that, one has a museum on campus not far from the practice facility. One of the greatest of all time is an Ohio State legacy. What is it about Ohio State? It's not, we don't have the greatest weather all year. It's not the ideal place to practice your game. But how is it that Ohio State gets guys like you ready for situations like this?
I think we play a really, really awesome schedule, which helps a lot with preparation for big tournaments. We get to play some really tough and really great golf courses, which is what they do on the PGA Tour and in majors. So I think showing up to golf courses and not being scared at all or not being intimidated by the challenge, because I'm used to playing it with all the college events that we play. I think that's a huge thing. And I think the camaraderie that we have is great. We have a special group, a really close group, which I think a lot of teams might not have. So it's cool to have a close group that, we're encouraging each other throughout the summer. And I think that's a big thing. The summer becomes very individual, but we have a team that, is still a team throughout the summer when we see each other and even when we don't. So it's just a great group.
So normally the last thing before I let you get back out to prepare for, Thursday's round, the first round of the Barbasol, we always ask, we do the other sports around campus that aren't football, like, hey, have you been able to take advantage of NIL yet? What sponsorships do you want? It seems like since the USGA and RNA changed their rules a couple of years ago, you're in a good position. It seems like you're doing pretty well. Are there still some sponsors that you haven't reeled in yet that you want?
Not really. I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now, especially as an amateur. But I'm thankful that they're allowing college athletes to capitalize a little bit on NIL. I think it's especially in golf where travel expenses and tournament entry fees, stuff's really expensive. So it's nice to have some help with that throughout the summer. And yeah, it's been cool to represent a few companies that I have a personal or close connection with. And it's been really good so far.
All right. Well, hopefully a few more people will be tuned in to watch Maxwell Moldovan. He qualified for the Barbasol Championship in a Monday qualifier, made the cut at the U.S. Open, and he's still got another year at Ohio State. So pay close attention to that. Again, he'll be out there on the tee at 8:57 on Thursday, looking to make another cut on the PGA Tour. Max, we thank you for your time. We wish you the best of luck this weekend.
Thank you, Austin. Appreciate you having me. God bless.
All right. For Max, I'm Austin Ward. Thanks for joining us on the Podcast Daily. We'll talk to you later.